Zalman Soroshkin, who died in 1966, told the following story, which he personally witnessed. He was part of the story. He was a young Rav of the town of Zetel. It was apparently the birthplace of the Chavis Chaim. Chavis Chaim was known to live in Radin. He was born in Zetel. A certain citizen of the city, his name was Rav Asher. Rav Asher's son wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael. His father wanted him to have a job in Eretz Yisrael. Accordingly, Rav Asher bought his son a car. Very early days of automobiles, bought him a car so that he could learn how to be a chauffeur, cab driver. Learned the trade, and Rav Asher's son went back and forth from the train station in Zetel, talking to people who came to the town. One day, it was right before candlelighting. Right, it was very, very close to Shabbos. They saw this kid, Rav Asher's son, driving his car, going for another round to pick up people at the train station. Some townspeople went and told the Rav. Back then, the Rav of the town actually had some spiritual input in people's lives. And Rav Zalman Soroshkin called in this son. He said to him, they said you were driving mamish minutes before Shabbos, and there was no way you could get home in time for Shabbos. So the son said it was just a mistake. I thought I could make another run. I lost track of time. It won't happen again. Well, a couple of weeks later, people in town saw him driving mamish after Tesach Kol Chavim. It was Shabbos, the Kol HaDeos. And this went on and on. People were very, very upset. This was a religious town. People just didn't do this. And they went to Rav Zalman and said, you got to talk to his father, Rav Asher, and tell Rav Asher to get some control over his kid. Tell him to start being careful with Shabbos. It's ridiculous. You got to tell Rav Asher to admonish his son. He's letting him do this. So Rav Soroshkin agreed. He was a young Rav of the town, but he said, yeah, I'll go talk to him. But before he had a chance to go talk to him, Rav Asher had a stroke, very serious illness, and he was hospitalized. He was in the hospital for weeks and then months. Nothing was helping him. And then Rav Asher had a dream. His grandmother appeared to him in a dream and said, you don't need doctors, you need a bracha from the Chavis Chaim. Okay? So even though the doctors didn't give him permission to leave the hospital, the next morning he woke up with a start. And down the hallway, no one was there, got his crutches, and sort of hobbled down out of the hallway, out of the hospital, and straight to the train station. He's going to go to Radin to go see the Chavis Chaim. He had once before had a dream from his grandmother that he took very seriously about what I don't know what. So he took it very seriously. It was the only second time he ever had a dream with her. So he went to the Zetel train station, and he went on a train to a certain way station in the middle on his way to Radin, where he trains over there from one to the other. And when he got off in that way station, a major station somewhere in Poland, from which he could get the next train to Radin, he went out onto the platform. And lo and behold, guess who was there? Rav Zalman Soroshkin walking on the exact same platform. Rav Zalman couldn't believe it. Here was the man who'd been in the hospital for months. Rav Zalman ran over to him and said, Rav Asher, what are you doing here? So Rav Asher told Rav Soroshkin about his dream. He said, I'm here because I have to go to Radin to get a bracha from the Chavis Chaim. Rav Soroshkin said, this is unbelievable. The reason I am here right now is because I was just at a rabbinic conference. I'm returning home. I'm returning home to Zetel. I'm on the same train as the Chavis Chaim. He's on the train right now. He's about to go to Radin. There's no way this is a coincidence. The Rebbeinu Shalom set this up. Rav Soroshkin reported the story himself. This is the experience he had. He said, this must be something. Let me go bring you to Chavis Chaim right now. He's on the train. So Rav Soroshkin took Rav Asher. They went onto the train. They saw the Chavis Chaim there, with his tefillin on, he was davening shacharis. They waited respectfully until the Chavis Chaim finished davening. Rav Soroshkin's plan was to go over to the Chavis Chaim first and tell him that in addition to whatever Rav Asher was going to say, please also give him some mussar about taking care of his kid, telling him to stop driving on Shabbos. But before Rav Sorotzkin had a chance to do that, as soon as the Chavetz Chaim put away his tefillin, Rav Asher hobbled over there quickly in his crutches, ran to the Chavetz Chaim and started crying, telling him the whole story, how he was so sick and how he'd been in the hospital for months and nothing helped, and he had this dream from his grandmother, and she had said, get a bracha from the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim looked at Rav Asher and said, Yisrael Meir, that's his own name, Chavetz Chaim's name was Yisrael Meir Kagan. Yisrael Meir doesn't give brachas. Rav Sorotzkin said he was watching the whole time because he figured something was going to happen. He said this was too weird. Something had to happen. So Sorotzkin says, he watched it. The Chavetz Chaim says, Yisrael Meir doesn't give brachas. He's not a bracha giver. Rav Asher said, what do you mean? He said, please help me out. I'm not a bracha giver. Rav Asher started crying, please, you have to help me. What choice do I have? Look at me, these crutches, I can't walk. So the Chavetz Chaim said to him, look, we say on Friday night, Shmirat Shabbat lechuven elcha, ki hi makor habracha. To greet Shabbos, let's go, because it is the source of bracha. If Shabbos is happy with you, then I'm happy with you. Rav Asher said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Rav Asher hadn't said anything about his kid, but Chavetz Chaim then said, Rav Sorotzkin saw this. He said, look, if your family observes Shabbos properly, then Shabbos is all to give you bracha. But if your kid drives on Shabbos, or if your daughter brushes her hair in a way which is asur on Shabbos, how can Yisrael Meir be a bracha giver? So if Shabbos isn't happy with you, how can I give you a bracha? So Rav Asher was understandably in shock, since he had said nothing about his son or his daughter, which Rav Sorotzkin also didn't know about. And he made every effort, he said, to make his kids follow Shabbos. And Rav Sorotzkin said, 2 weeks later he was fine. I don't know what happened to the son, I don't know if it worked, but at least if nothing else had happened, it was fine. You take the story for what you want, but it's a story that Rav Sorotzkin said he himself saw. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I spoke about Shmirat Shabbat, which is a chiyuv that I'm guessing is a problem for some people on which they need to work. Several weeks before that, I spoke about Shmirat Shabbat, being careful with the laws of sexuality, which I certainly hope is something that people don't need to hear, but in all likelihood is something that's important to hear. And in general, I try to speak about issues which actually are, they say in Hebrew, actuality, relevant right now. Something which we need to work on immediately. Tonight, though, I'm not going to talk about something that I believe is actually an issue for anyone in this room. However, the Tzari Harab, I believe that it probably, for some of you, will become an issue in the future. Because that's what experience shows. Something which I could ignore, I think it's important to talk about it, to give you a basis so that one day, if chas v'shalom, it becomes relevant, to think about such things, to get to that level where we're thinking about these things, at least you want to hear a sikha about it. The first psukim of Vayakel, Parsha, read like this: Vayakel Moshe called up Bnei Yisrael v'yomer alehem. Moshe gathered, called up Bnei Yisrael together, and said to them, Eile hadvarim asher tziva Hashem l'asot otam. These are the words Hashem said to do them. Sheshet yamim taseh melacha. For 6 days, the work is done. V'yom hashvi yeh lechem kodesh. The 7th day should be holy. Shabbat Shabbaton l'Hashem. Kol aseh b'malacham yumat. Anyone who does malacha should be put to death. U'tvaru eish b'chol mishpotechem b'yom hashavat. Do not burn fire in all your dwelling places on Shabbos. V'yomer Moshe akol dap b'nei Yisrael le'mor. Zeh advar asher tzivah Hashem le'mor. Moshe then spoke to Klal Yisrael and said, this is the word Hashem commanded. K'chu me'echem truma l'Hashem. Take a truma, and then he goes on and describes the building of the Mishkan. And the various presents they gave the building of the Mishkan. And the Mechilta says that the smichut between these two things, between Shabbos, the first 3 psukim, and the Mishkan and the rest of the Parsha and next week's Parsha, teaches us that things done in the Mishkan are asur on Shabbos. It teaches us you can build the Mishkan for 6 days, but you're not allowed to build the Mishkan on Shabbos. What's the thematic connection between the Mishkan and Shabbos? I assume many of you know that the things that are usher on Shabbos, the 39 malachos that appear in Daf Ayin Gimel and Alf Masechet Shabbos, those 39 malachos are the 39 things done in the construction of the Mishkan. What's the connection? Aside from the fact that this is Michut in the Torah, what's the thematic connection that we can guess at perhaps? So one approach is this, which is that Shabbos is the day that we testify to the creation of the world in time by Hashem. It's actually aided. In fact, that's why some people are makpid that when you say Vayechulu on Friday night, you ever see this? You make sure you do it with 2 people. You ever see that? When you say Vayechulu after Shemona Esrei, some people are makpid to always make sure there's another person say it with them. So let's say your Shemona Esrei lasts a long time. Some people are careful that afterwards, if they didn't say Vayechulu with the Kal, they finish Shemona Esrei in the middle of Magen Avot or something. Then around Aleinu time, they call someone else over and say, "Can you say Vayechulu with me?" Why? Because you need 2 Eidim. You are actually testifying that Hashem created the world in time. Okay, what's that to do with the Mishkan? The answer is that the Mishkan, for very important reasons, is actually a microcosm of the universe. The Mishkan is a microcosm of the universe. Please indulge me for a couple of minutes so I explain what this means on some basic level. But the Balei Kabbalah tell us there are 5 levels of being, 5 levels of existence. Not so much areas in physical sense as almost like states of consciousness. States of consciousness, levels of looking at things. There's the highest level, which is called Olam Ein Sof, or Adam Kadmon. Below that is a level called Asilut. Below that are levels called Briah, Yitzirah, and then our level, the world, the physical world, which is called Asiyah. In fact, the same thing that's true on a cosmic level, that Hashem created the universe with 5 different sections to it. These 5 things, these 5 levels of being, is also true for every individual human being. The Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin Lamed Zayin says, "Livra Adam Yechidi," human being was created alone. Anyone who destroys a Jewish nefesh, it's as if he destroyed an entire world. Anyone who saves a single nefesh in Israel, the Torah considers it like he kept the world going. So the same thing is true for the world, it's true for human being. Human being is a world. In the same way that there are 5 levels to the world outside, every individual human being has in his own psychological neshama world 5 different levels. I know some of you have heard this well-known analogy before from me or from other people. It's often compared to a glass blower. Heard this before? Glass blower? You ever see a glass blower out on the beach? You know, they go and they have a little tube. At the end of it is, you guys see that? Huh? And the guy explained to you what it's for? All the levels? He explained
What's a glass blower?
Huh?
What's a glass blower?
No, but did he explain to you in Svat? I figured if in Svat he'll explain the, huh? The spiritual element of it? No. Just explain what it means, the metaphor. I'll explain to you the metaphor in case you didn't say it, okay? Briefly, there's this idea over here, which is that the human neshama, like the world, is divided into 5 different parts. Imagine the glass blower blowing out, making this kli at the end of it, you know that circle? Right? So, there's the level of the kli itself, the air when it lands in that thing. And there's a level when it travels through that tube from the blower's mouth into the kli. Then there's the air as it comes out of the mouth of the blower. Not when it's traveling, but initial puff. It comes from the glass blower's mouth. These are actually the 3 things that are called person's soul. It's called nefesh, ruach, and neshama. The word nefesh refers to rest, because Yom HaShvi'i Shabbat vayi nafash. Nafash means to rest. Where the air rests is called the nefesh. That's the person's his physical body, his life. Damu nefesh, physicality. Ruach is the traveling air. Neshama is the divine breath that comes out. The blower in this mashal is God Himself. It's a mashal, it's the parable. What Hashem does, Hashem, so to speak, blows out neshama, which means nishima. The word neshama means breath. It travels, that's what a person calls his ruach, and then it lands called his nefesh. What level comes before it's in the blower's mouth? When it's actually inside the blower, not when it's coming out of his mouth, when it's in his lungs. That's the level above that. called level called Chaya, and above that is the idea to blow in the first place, which is called Yechida. So the same way there are 5 levels of the world, every human being has 5 levels in the Neshama. 5 levels in the Neshama. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida. And, to finalize the analogy, the Mishkan itself has 5 different levels. If you look at a map of the Mishkan, there was the Azara, where anyone could go. At least into parts of it. Past that was the Heichal, or the Kodesh, where only the Kohanim could go. Inside that, you have the Kodesh HaKodashim, where only the Kohen Gadol could go on Yom Kippur. Inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, you have the Aron. Inside the Aron, you have the Luchot. This symbolically represents the 5 part of the human world, or the 5 levels of the cosmic world around us. Therefore, obviously that itself is its own separate Torah, what this all means, but in the Gadol we see the Mishkan is actually very parallel to these levels, and the parallelism goes way beyond what I just said there. I'm giving you an overview of it. The point is, though, the Mishkan itself is our recreation of the world. Hashem created the world, we built the Mishkan. Hashem built the world with 5 levels, Hashem built the human Hashem with 5 levels, we built the Mishkan with 5 levels. Our building of the Mishkan is parallel to creation. So, therefore, parallel to God's refraining from working on Shabbos, we don't do the Mishkan on Shabbos. That's the logic behind it. That's why. Then the question becomes, the pasuk said 3 weeks ago in the Parshat Truma, "Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." They will make a Mishkan for me. They should make a Mishkan for me, and I will dwell among them. Meaning the Mishkan is the means through which Hashem dwells in Klal Yisrael. The Mishkan is the means for v'shachanti b'tocham, I will dwell among them. And not just the Mishkan, but the act of building it. Building a Mishkan brings Hashem down into the world. So, if on Shabbos you can't build the Mishkan, is Hashem not in the world that day? If the Mishkan and the building thereof is that which brings God into the world, does that mean that on Shabbos when we can't do that, do we have the Shekhinah? How do we have the Shekhinah that day? The difference is that on Shabbos, we don't need a Mishkan. During the week, maybe we need to build a Mishkan. We need to do something like that in order to experience the Shekhinah, the divine presence. But on Shabbos we don't need that because, in a mystical way, Shabbos is itself equivalent to the Shekhinah. Shabbos and the Shekhinah are actually synonyms. The Shekhinah, translated into time, is called Shabbos. The same way the Shekhinah translated to space is Mishkan, the Shekhinah translated into time is Shabbos. On Shabbos, we are living in the Shekhinah as expressed in time. That's in fact why there's so much ambiguity, if you notice, in Kabbalah Shabbos. You ever notice in Kabbalah Shabbos we say boy kala? But who's the kala? Is it Shabbos or is it the Shekhinah? The answer is they're the same thing. And in fact, if you want to get into a little further, that is actually part of the reason why there's a machlokes, which standing over here, I always see the machlokes going on here on Friday night. Do you face that wall or do you face the door? Okay? Happens to be I face the wall, or look, you face the door. If Moshe says face the wall, Salvation says face the door. What's it all about? It's a machlokes, it's true, okay? It's a machlokes really about whether we're following the Zohar or the Gemara, even though the Gemara itself doesn't discuss the issue, but per se. But the issue comes down to this. On some level, if you're greeting Shabbos, you face the door. If you're greeting the Shekhinah, there's an idea, whatever it means, the Shekhinah is in the west because the Kodesh Kodashim was in the west of the base of Mikdash. Therefore, when you greet the Shekhinah, you're facing the west, which is the back wall. If you're greeting Shabbos, you follow the original thing that Rabbi Hanina did, you walk towards the door. It's just a matter of, that's really what it's coming down to, all right? It's nice to know why we're doing what we're doing, okay? That's what it comes down to. All right, but ultimately it doesn't really matter because they're the same thing. Shabbos is the Shekhinah. Shabbos is the thing, we can say such a thing. You don't need to find a physical place for the Shekhinah because it's already there. I know myself, every time I look at the Friday night candles, right, it's the same my own experience. I just, in my head, that's why the Shekhinah is here tonight. It's a reminder for me personally, the Shekhinah is here. What does it mean the Shabbos is the Shekhinah? What does that phrase mean? Well, Shabbos is a reminder of two basic ideas. We're saying Kiddush, Zecher l'Maasav Bereishis, and Zecher l'Yetziat Mitzrayim. Shabbos is a remembrance of creation and Yetziat Mitzrayim. Why these two ideas? These two ideas are intricately related. Our understanding of Hashem is predicated on two basic ideas. That He created the world, and He continues to sustain the world. That He both started the world, and He's continually involved in the world. Or, Maseh Bereshit, Yitzhak Mitzrayim. Maseh Bereshit is He created it, Yitzhak Mitzrayim is He continues to be involved and inserts Himself into the world. In fact, it's Gemara in Brachos. In my shir a couple weeks ago, we talked about being Somach Kula Tefillah Sha'arvis, how that's the Ben Olam Haba. The Gemara there says a different answer. It says a different thing also. It says, who's a Ben Olam Haba? Is somebody who says Ashrei 3 times a day. Did ever hear that? Say Ashrei 3 times a day or Ben Olam Haba. Gemara asks why. So what's the reason why? The Gemara gives two answers. And it says, rejects both. Anyone know why the Gemara says, if you say Ashrei 3 times a day, you're Ben Olam Haba? What's one of them? Aleph Bet. Has all Aleph Bet. What's the other reason? Has Poteach Eidecha. The Gemara says, that can't be the answer because if it had just the Aleph Bet, there are other things that have Aleph Bet. Because Rukuf Yatet has Aleph Bet 8 times. So it'll be better. If it's just Poteach Eidecha, which means Hashem's involved in the world, Hashem's feeding everyone what they need. We also have Notein Lechem L'chol Basar K'dom Chasto. You could have said that. We could have said Halal Gadol. Let's think of that in Mizmar. We could have said that one instead. So the Gemara's answer, what was the Gemara's answer? Has both. This one has both. Okay, what does that mean though? What does it mean you're Ben Olam Haba? It has both Aleph Bet and, who cares? Aleph Bet Poteach Eidecha, what does that mean? Because Aleph Bet is always a symbol of creation. Hashem created the world with Dibur. As I said in my last Ticha, Bereshit bara Elokim et. Aleph Tatah, Hashem created the world with speech. And the same way Hashem created the world with speech, every time we talk about the Aleph Bet, it's always a symbol of creation. Aleph Bet is continually a symbol of creation. And along with that, Poteach Eidecha is a symbol of God's involving Himself in the world. What is the experience of Olam Haba? Being able to experience the fact that Hashem is not only the creator, but the sustainer of the world. So someone who says Ashrei 3 times a day, 3 times is a chazaka, which means you internalize it. Someone who internalizes God's both creator and sustainer, you're already in Olam Haba. That's what it means. That's the pshat of that Gemara. Belief that God created the world and continues to sustain it is the experience of being in Olam Haba. And Shabbos itself has these same two ideas, which is why Shabbos is called Me'ein Olam Haba, because it also is about Hashem created the world and sustains the world. But in fact, if you want to take it even deeper, these two ideas, that God created the world and sustains the world, are not two ideas, they're one idea. It's actually only one idea. If you were a deist, like Thomas Jefferson, you would believe that God created the world like a watchmaker and wound it up and went away, which is not the concept of Yesh Me'ayin according to us. See, Hashem didn't leave the world, rather Hashem is constantly recreating it every single second. Which means that creation wasn't a one-time thing. The difference with creation was that was the first moment that Hashem created. But every single moment He continues to create and continues to create it. And even though to me this looks like a solid table, Hashem actually is recreating it every single second. Every single second is a new table, almost like a film, which, however many frames per second. To me it looks like it's actually just a solid thing, but it's in fact just different things, and should you cut the film, it'll be gone. Because Briat HaOlam and Yetziat Mitzrayim, creation and Hashgacha, sustaining, are the same thing. Because Hashem's constantly involved in creating the world. That means He's doing it right now. He's involved. So experiencing Shabbos as the divine presence, saying Shabbos equals the Shekhinah, what does that mean? It's to sense Hashem's presence in the world. He is currently creating the world this second. That Hashem is present in time and space. To sense that Hashem is indeed running the show at this very moment. The Creator who once created the world continues to create it and sustain it every single day. And on Shabbos, we have to experience this theoretical idea as a living reality. That's what we mean when we say that Shabbos is the Shekhinah. That we experience the theoretical concept of God constantly creating the world and creating it right this minute and therefore being involved in my life this second. On Shabbos, that becomes a practical, tangible, touchable reality. The genius of Knesset Yisrael, the people of Israel, has determined over history that the definition of a Jew who follows the Torah is a Shomer Shabbat. Nowadays you have terms like Haredi, Orthodox. Once upon a time, the question was, is he Shomer Shabbos or not? as a people, we have always understood, we've always sensed, consciously or otherwise, that Shabbos may well be the central motif in all Judaism. Shabbos will be the central pillar of Judaism. So yes, it has a very important idea behind it, the idea that it is the Shekhinah, whatever that means. And the idea that it represents understanding practically that God creates and sustains the world every moment. Nevertheless, why is that the definition of a Jew? A Shomer Shabbos. The answer is because we as Knesset Yisrael, we as the members of Klal Yisrael, have a very specific job. We have a role. Our role is to show that the world, which sometimes feels to be empty of God, is actually the home of God. It's filled with divine oneness. The reason that Kiddush Hashem is the most important thing a Jew can do, and Chilul Hashem is the worst thing a Jew can do, is because Kiddush Hashem means showing that where he didn't see Hashem before, he actually is here. And Chilul Hashem, Chilul means emptiness, says that you thought God was here, but he's actually not here. You're pushing him out. It's the opposite of our job. Our job as Klal Yisrael is to show that Hashem's in the world. It's interesting machloket, Parshat Vayetze, between Rashi and the Ramban, on the pasuk, V'nei Hashem nitzav alav. Yaakov has a dream of a sulam, right? The ladder going up to heaven. V'nei malachei Elokim olim v'yordim bo. Malachim are going up and down. V'nei Hashem nitzav alav. Hashem was standing on it or him. Doesn't say. Okay? Rashi says that alav means on Yaakov. The Ramban says it means on the ladder. Hashem standing on the ladder up there, or Hashem standing on Yaakov down here? And Yaakov, of course, represents us. We're Yaakov. We're Bnei Yaakov. I think the pasuk is intentionally ambiguous, which Rav Greenberg might talk about, in order to say both pshat and real. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Question is this: is Hashem up there, or is he down here? Is Hashem on earth, or is he in heaven? The answer is very simple. The Kotzker Rebbe, Menachem Kotz, wants to answer: Hashem on earth or in heaven? He asked a Talmud of his. He said, "Where's Hashem?" I said, "What do you mean, where's Hashem? Hashem's everywhere." Kotzker Rebbe said, "No, he's wherever you let him in." Soloveitchik in Halachic Man goes on for a long time, describing how important it is that we have the Shekhinah down here. The idea of God's presence down on earth is the central motif, and the exile of the Shekhinah, the concept of the Shekhinah begaluta, is when the Shekhinah is up there. So the Shekhinah up here or down there? Excuse me, down here or up there? The answer is, it's up to us. When we do our job, we bring him down here. Hashem's here in the world. When we don't, he's up there. If our job as Klal Yisrael is to show that the Shekhinah is down here, and our job is to show Hashem is in the world, then Shabbos is the epitome of what our job is supposed to be. Shabbos represents the culmination and the fulfillment of our goal. If our job every single day is to try and demonstrate that Hashem is down here, and Shabbos is the experience of God being here, the Shekhinah, which means God's presence actually being here, that's what Shabbos is, they're synonymous, then Shabbos actually is the fulfillment of everything that we want. The week is our attempt, and Shabbos is the fulfillment. Once again, that's why the ultimate future, Olam Haba, is called Yom Shekulo Shabbat, because Shabbos is the goal. Shabbos means that we experience Hashem now. That is what we're supposed to be doing every single day. But on Shabbos, it becomes possible. It becomes possible to actually experience it, not just to try and show it. Someone who's Shomer Shabbos means he knows what the goal of Klal Yisrael is. The goal of Klal Yisrael is to show Hashem's down here. And Shabbos is the experience of that. If a person Shomer Shabbos, that means he says whatever else he does, he says, I know what my job is. I might mess up other things, but I know what my job is. My job is to bring God into this world. The word shomer, by the way, also has a connotation of waiting. Someone who's shomer for something means he's anticipating something. Again, the double entendre. That on the one hand, he's shomer Shabbos, he's keeping Shabbos. On the other hand, he's waiting for the ultimate Shabbos because he sees there's an ultimate goal up there. We show that Hashem's in the world, not just on Shabbos, but permanently. Someone who's shomer Shabbos every single day is trying to bring God into the world. On Shabbos, he experiences it as true. He's experienced it as the reward. That actually Hashem is down here. And every single day, a person has to try and anticipate Shabbos. He's supposed to think of every single day coming close to Shabbos. What can I do to get closer to Shabbos? Thinking how far he is from Shabbos. Many of you know the story of Shammai and Hillel, how Shamai Zakin used to go and buy, and every single day he'd buy for Shabbos. Every single day his was getting ready for Shabbos. He used to buy an animal. He'd say, this will be for Shabbos. And if it was the best thing he found all week, it would be for Shabbos. If he found something better, he'd eat the first one, save the next one for Shabbos. In fact, the Ramban, on the pasuk Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho in Parshat Yitro, says, I'm quoting the Mechilta, that every single day you're supposed to mention Shabbos. And that's the reason, by the way, that we have a minhag before Shir Shal Yom to say Hayom Yom Shishit B'Shabbat. Every single day you're supposed to mention Shabbos. You're supposed to mention getting closer to Shabbos, getting closer to Shabbos, getting closer to Shabbos. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. And in fact, some people have the minhag even on days in Eretz Yisrael, on certain days, for example, on Rosh Chodesh. What's the Shir Shal Yom of Rosh Chodesh? Baruch Nafshi, right? So let's say, for example, Rosh Chodesh is on a Wednesday. They'll still say Hayom Yom Revi B'Shabbat. Then they'll go into Baruch Nafshi. So to say it, it's filling the Ramban. Every single day you're getting ready for Shabbos. Derech Agav. I actually don't say Hayom Yom Shabbos Kodesh on Shabbos, because there's no need, because the whole reason you're saying it is to mention Shabbos. You have Kiddush on Shabbos, there's no need. These more shortly on Shabbos, say it there. So, anyway. Derech Agav. All right? Not everyone agrees with that. The Shalom name and Talmud Yeris also say it anyway. Okay. Now, all this hashkafa I'm giving you is not because I suspect anyone chas v'shalom being mechal Shabbos. I nevertheless question whether everybody, even now in yeshiva, forget in the future, truly respects and gives kavod to Shabbos the way you should. Do you really respect Shabbos 100%? Now, let me tell you what I mean by it. Give you some examples. On Shabbos, are you careful to be in shul on time, as opposed to showing up whenever? Maybe during the week you're makpid, but Shabbos is sleeping time? The Gemara does say that the letters Shin Bet Taf stand for Shein B'Shabbos time. Sleeping on Shabbos is wonderful. I don't think it meant during davening. You decide to have an easy Shabbos, not going anywhere. You're going to stay in the yeshiva. What do you eat? Do you buy anything expensive? Warren Beisa says, by the way, any money you spend on Shabbos doesn't go off your tab. Hashem gives you a certain amount of Rosh Hashanah, says you're going to make, whatever. This year you're going to be making $57,000. Right? But that doesn't include anything you spend on Shabbos. That doesn't count. So if you spend $1,000 on Shabbos, there'll still be $57,000 left over. If you spend $10,000 over Shabbos, there'll still be $57,000 left over. Warren Beisa says that. Okay? Do you just take a sandwich and bunk in? Do you actually make nice food on Shabbos? Have you been careful that on Shabbos when you're here and you're not going out, do you actually have a proper Shabbos meal? Is it something you actually pay attention to? When you stay in on Shabbos, are you makpid to sing Zmiros? I'm not saying it's a mitzvah to sing Zmiros, but do you say Divrei Torah at the table? Is the conversation at the table on a high level, or is it the way it is during the week? Is Shabbos a day you take a break from learning, or is it a day that you make sure to do some learning? I think it was Rav Dessler who said when he was younger, he was growing up in Europe, but what was Shabbos? And Shabbos, kids probably used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and learn until Shabbos. Because Shabbos, you gotta learn. It's a special day for learning. Special. Let's put it in different terms. Are you less frum on Shabbos than you are during the week? Okay. Are you less careful about things on Shabbos? Are you less interested in davening properly? Are you less interested in thinking of the mitzvahs of Shabbos? Are you? Is the fact you have so much time on Shabbos an invitation for Bittul Zman? And I'm not saying don't take a nap on Shabbos. I take a nap on Shabbos. I'm not trying to say that, but think about it. What is your Shabbos like? Is it something that Karat Shabbos Oneg is something you really enjoy, or something you... It's a day off. Let me even throw something else out, which I'm not necessarily suggesting everyone do. Make sure you're ready. But it's something which, when I started doing, really changed my Shabbos. Even though to this day it's not always so easy. Which is that, maybe think about what you read on Shabbos. Maybe you should only read non-secular literature on Shabbos. You can read magazines during the week, some magazines. But maybe on Shabbos you should. Maybe Shabbos shouldn't. Maybe Shabbos should read something a little more uplifting, maybe. Suppose a Time magazine or something like that. Nothing wrong with it. Is it Shabbos? Maybe Shabbos we should read Torah and related literature. Maybe that's the thing to do. I know it changes your life when you do it. And people now are currently not always as respectful of Shabbos as they should be. In Eretz Yisrael, in Yeshiva, when everything is stacked in your favor to make Shabbos that much easier to do. What's going to happen when you go to college in Chutz La'aretz? You know, you get to bend the rules. You know, let's say there's a party going on, and there's no technical Chil Shabbos. It's an Eruv on campus, and you're not going to turn on any lights. Good to go? By the way, that's assuming you can go to a party at all during the week. The answer is no. But let's even leave that aside. Okay? How about later on? You're a junior in college. You get a text. Now, of course, half Shabbos is a big joke because you're in yeshiva. But you know something? Some people find a real challenge. Maybe you'll find a challenge too. You gonna do it? Someone wrote a sefer about it. Can we give you Askama?
Try.
Playing a game on an iPod? You got tests you got to study for. Maybe you want to write down a note. How far will you be pushed and still be resistant to it? As I said, I'm almost embarrassed talking about it now. I'm sure these things are not at all a havmina for anybody. But you never know what's going to come, and you got to realize that Shabbos is your ultimate red line. No matter what happens in the rest of your life, and there are going to be a lot of surprises. That much I can guarantee. But no matter what happens the rest of your life, Shabbos has to be your absolute. It has to be that absolute line. Because once Shabbos is gone, even in a small way, you'll actually sever your connection to Klal Yisrael in a very serious way. In a certain sense, once Shabbos is not really part of your life anymore, you're saying, I'm asking to be free of the mission of Klal Yisrael. It's not the mission of Klal Yisrael is no longer my mission. Remember, one of the saddest things I ever saw was when I was visiting my sister in New York years ago. It was after this yeshiva started, but I was a student from a different yeshiva. I'd had maybe 5 years earlier, and he walked into her lobby on Shabbos. It was Friday night late, you know, in Manhattan. It was quite clear it wasn't Shomer Shabbos anymore. I couldn't believe it. This one I've been in touch with. Walking home from work at like 8 o'clock at night on Friday night in the winters, that kind of thing, you know. You're saying I'm no longer part of the mission of Klal Yisrael. It's no longer part of who I am. Now, apart from this general warning to take Shabbos seriously already now and start trying to improve your own personal Shabbos in any way you can, apart from that, I want to suggest an important step towards doing this. And I'm going to give a caveat before I say this, which is that sometimes we take on too much, okay? And we as your teachers can sometimes be a party to that. And a Rav of mine once said, I've told some of you, we say every day in Hashkivenu, V'aser Satan milfanenu me'acharenu. Take away the Satan from in front of us and from behind us. So, who's the Satan in front of us? The Satan in front of us is the one saying, go do this Avera. Who's the Satan behind us? That's the one who says, you're not firm enough yet, do more, do more, do more. And sometimes you do so much, take on so much, these things falls by the way. So 2 weeks ago, I told you to learn Sefer Chavetz Chaim. And 22 people took me up on the offer to get the book, which is great. I think there are other people who just have the book or are learning without the offer. That's also great. And now I'm going to tell you something else. So, fine. So you got to take on both and you won't do either one. So I'm not trying to give you some big project now. Okay, learn about all of Hilchos Shabbos and then, okay, taking on too much is ridiculous. I realize that. So I'm not going to recommend something big like that. Okay? I'm only asking for something small. Recommending something small. And that is, in a very basic level, become familiar with Hilchos Shabbos. That's a huge thing. It's a third of our Chaim. I'm not saying read all the Orach Chaim, it would be a wonderful thing. Someday, read all of Shmirat Shabbat, of course. But right now, open up your Masechet Shabbos, 7th parak. It's in the Mishnah. Look at Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, the list of the 39 malachos, and just know the malachos of Shabbos. 39 malachos of Shabbos, know what they are. Be able to recite them. Know the malachos of Shabbos. That's all I'm saying. Know the malachos of Shabbos. Have some basic idea what Shabbos is. Let's say something else. Many years ago, I asked Rabbi Simkovich what book he recommends for Shabbos. It's a book probably a lot of you have seen. It's Rabbi Baruch Chait's picture book. You ever see that book?
Yeah.
Great book. He recommended it. That I was going to bring it in tonight, but we actually don't have it anymore because we use it so much. It was completely torn apart. I got to get a new one because my kids. It's great. It's a picture book, and it's a really good, really well done. Look at it. Explains each one of the 39 malachos, and then explains with pictures, cartoons. The whole thing's in cartoons. It's not many pages, probably 50 pages. All cartoon, just saying everything, whether it's mutter, asur, and midoraisa, midorabban. If it has a green book, it's mutter. If it has, I think, a red book, it's asur, and I don't remember how they say it's doraisa midorabban. There's some way they indicate it. Okay? If it's asur, midoraisa, midorabban. Great book, easy to read. Take a look at it. You'll get a basic idea of Hilchos Shabbos. Because look, ultimately, Shabbos is the central way whether you determine you're a member in good standing in Klal Yisrael. And I want to conclude with this idea. Just as the Kabbalists have told us that Shabbos is somehow equivalent to the Shekhinah, Shabbos is also somehow equivalent to the Neshama of Klal Yisrael. The collective soul of Klal Yisrael is Shabbos the same way that somehow the divine presence is Shabbos. I don't know what the mystics mean by this, but I'll tell you one thing it means. If you were to go deep into the Neshama of every Jew, in there you'd find Shabbos. And if you look in Shabbos, you'd find the Rebbeinu Shalom. Just as you find Shabbos in the soul of every Jew, you find Hashem manifest in Shabbos. Now, by way of conclusion, let me say this. There are many people who try to philosophically demonstrate the presence of God, philosophically prove God exists. It seems to me that every philosophical or logical proof of God is doomed to failure. My understanding of what God is, to agree to say such a word, is that He is not provable. The nature of proofs involves things that are within the intellectual world. God who transcends the intellect, by definition, can't be proved. God can't be the object of a proof because God can never be an object. He's the eternal subject with a capital S. He does. He's not acted upon. A proof acts upon. So I think it's just impossible. It's not my idea. Soloveitchik says this. But where logical proof is meaningless, the experience of the Shekhinah on Shabbos is truly decisive. Experiencing Shabbos properly means experiencing God. The proof of God's presence isn't in logic, it's in Shabbos. And Shabbos is kept properly. And it's not worth trading that experience for anything. Certainly not a text or an iPod. Tonight, let's make a commitment to ourselves, to Al Klal Yisrael, to Knesset Yisrael. That starting tomorrow night, whether you're in yeshiva, whether you're out of yeshiva, you will treat Shabbos with the proper respect. We'll start treating Shabbos like a special day, and even when we have that Shabbos off, we're going to sing Zmiros, we're going to have Torah at the table, we're going to make sure our conversation's on a higher, not a lower level than it is during the week. And it will make our Shabbos better, not worse. Believe me, it will make it a better, richer experience. In Kal V'chomer in the future, may we always be successful in experiencing that divine presence on Shabbos. We never change it for anything.